readers, welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to be doing the fairy tale in real life tag. So this tag was created by Harlequin Teen, I think. It started about 3 years ago when they released a story called Something Between Us. A lot of the videos that were made were sponsored by Harlequin Teen. I'm not, so I'm changing the rules just slightly. So basically the rules are that you have to pick contemporary novels for this challenge. But I don't read a lot of contemporary novels, so I really did my best to try to pick all contemporary, but there were just a few that I could not think of anything, so I just chose other stories from other genres. So, let's get into the video. The first prompt is the fairy godmother. So we have to pick a character in a story that gave the protagonist a lot of advice. So it's like a motherly or a fatherly figure. And I chose the father from Rules for 50-50 Chances by Kate McGovern. This story follows Rose Levinson, a girl whose mother has Huntington's disease. Huntington's is a lot like Parkinson's in that it first attacks your mind and then attacks your body, and eventually it is going to be what kills you. And when it comes to Huntington's, if one of your parents has the gene, then there's a 50-50 chance that you will also carry the gene. And if you do, then you will get Huntington's. So the story follows Rose Levinson, who is trying to figure out if she wants to take the test and find out if she is going to eventually develop Huntington's, or if she just wants to wait it out and just try to live a normal life while she can. The dad in this book is such a solid character. He is so kind. He's always trying to be upbeat, which is really hard when your wife is suffering from Huntington's disease or any sort of degenerative disease. And he is so positive and so kind all the time. And he gives Rose such good advice when trying to figure out what she wants to do. And, you know, I'm not going to go into details, but he's phenomenal. And I will be talking about this book in my March and April wrap-up because it was phenomenal and I want other people to read more Kate McGovern because she's very good. The next prompt is Prince Charming. So I basically have to pick a character who had to go through a lot for someone that they loved. And I'm picking Ollie from Everything Everything by Nicola Yoon. Everything Everything follows this girl named Maddie who has a very rare autoimmune disorder where she's pretty much just allergic to the world. So she always just has to stay inside. And she's completely fine with that. Her mother and her nurse treat her extremely well until she sees a boy next door and his name is Ollie. And they start talking and they start interacting on email, and she just really wants to meet him and really wants to interact with him. And this entire story follows their journey to becoming a couple and figuring out how to handle that given that she can never leave the house. And Ollie goes through so much for Maddie, and he definitely didn't have to, but he chose to, and it's so cute, and I loved them together. Even if the book wasn't necessarily my favorite book, because it wasn't, but I really loved them together, and I thought what he went through for her, no matter how hard it was, I thought it was just really sweet. The next prompt is called Forbidden Fruit, so I basically just have to name a character who gives into temptation or is very close to falling into temptation. I chose Edmund from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I don't actually have that book on my shelf. I read it once in 6th grade, but this was the only novel I could think of for temptation, and I know when I film this video and I think about it harder, I'm going to realize that there were about 87 different characters I could have chosen, but I'm going with Edmund because my mind is drawing a blank. So most people have read the Chronicles of Narnia, so I'm not going to go too much into detail, but Edmund just pretty much doesn't feel like he fits in with his family. His older siblings are always ridiculing him, and his younger sister is always getting her way, and so when he stumbles into Narnia, he falls for temptation when he meets the White Witch who promises that she can give him everything that his family isn't giving him. And in the end, he ends up risking his family's lives and his own life because of his temptation. So, yeah, I mean, it fits. It's not necessarily contemporary, but it fits. So we're going to go with it. The next prompt is When the Clock Strikes Midnight. And so basically that is just when there is an impending event that is causing fear in one or a group of people. Again, mind drew a blank. I'm definitely going to be reminded of a bunch of different contemporary novels where this would have worked out, but I am choosing The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. And again, I don't actually have this book. I ended up donating it a couple of years ago because I never thought I would really want to read it again. And then as soon as I donated it, I was like, oh my god, I want to read it again. So that's a whole other story. But the Hunger Games, basically, obviously, most people in the districts feel a bit of fear when they think about the Hunger Games, which is where one boy and one girl between the ages of, I believe, 13 and 18 are picked to go fight to the death. I mean, it causes fear, so we're going to go with it. Sorry, it's not contemporary, but I really did try. I racked my brain, I stared at my contemporary shelf, and I just could not think of anything. So we're going to go with that. Cool. The next prompt is the Big Bad Wolf. So this is basically just pick an antagonist that the protagonist struggles with, and this can be internal or physical. And I chose Samantha from Don't Look Back by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Samantha is actually the protagonist in this story. She ends up waking up on the side of the road after 3 or 4 days of being missing. She ends up going to the hospital and she finds out that her best friend is also missing. So this entire story is just her trying to fight with her inner thoughts and trying to understand what happened to her best friend. She's always just constantly fighting with her inner anxieties and her fears about whether she caused this or if it had something to do with her. So I am choosing Samantha because she did have a lot of inner demons. And I think this is close enough to contemporary for me to count it. So I am. The next prompt is called Power Within You, and it's basically just me picking a character who struggled and found themselves to be very average for a very long time, but then by the end of it found out that there was actually a strength within them that they never knew. I have another non-contemporary for this one, and I know there are a lot of contemporary books where this would actually fit, but this was a recent read for me and I think this fits perfectly, and this is Ashen from the Age of Legends trilogy by Kelly Armstrong. This is the first book, Sea of Shadows, where we first meet Ashen and her twin sister, who find out that somebody is dabbling in the black magic and bringing monsters that they thought were just fairy tales to life and wreaking havoc on different communities and different villages. And at first, Ashen is probably the dumbest character I've actually ever read about. She is so obnoxious, she's so naive, she's always just living in her sister's shadow and letting her sister do her dirty work for her. And I honestly just did not like her at all. But by the third book, she actually ended up finding her own strength, considering they got separated quite a few times. And she ended up realizing how to do things on her own and how to do things for her sister. And it was just really nice to see her change of character and her character grow throughout this whole thing. So I think Ashen deserves this more than any other character I can think of. And because I didn't follow the rules anyways, I didn't really think it was a big deal. So the next prompt is the Grand Ball. So this is basically just an event or a situation where a character is struggling to fit in. I am choosing Bells by Jen Kalanita. This is a book about Isabel Scott, who is forced to uproot her entire life and go move in with her rich uncle, who's running for senator after living her entire life in a fairly run-down neighborhood by the pier in North Carolina. And she struggles a lot to fit in. She has to go to private school in the area. She has to be on TV enforcing her uncle's campaign. And there are just so many different situations where she has to try to fit in and be somebody that she really isn't. And this is a super underrated series. I read this a while ago and it's one of those like trashy YA novels where you kind of just feel good. Like you just feel happy and you're just enjoying your time. There's absolutely no depth to this novel whatsoever. But it's probably one of my favorite trashy YA series. Plus, the cover, when I take the sleeve off, the back is so beautiful and the front is just a girl. But the back is just all full of roses and I love it. It's just such a feel-good story. The next prompt is Fairest of Them All, and this is just basically where outer beauty clashes with inner beauty. So I am choosing Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. Basically, Eleanor is not societally very beautiful. She's chubby, she's got frizzy red hair. Wow, I can relate to this a lot. Okay, cool. And she just really likes to listen to her own music, and she just kind of stays to herself because nobody at school really gives her the time of day as being somebody worth a relationship or even a friendship for the most part. Until she meets Park, and Park even at first is a little weary about giving her the time of day, but he ends up looking past the outer stuff that people hate about her and sees her true colors, sees how nice and kind she actually is. And it's just a really cute story. Plus, this edition has so much fan art. It's the special edition. So it has this fan art at the back. I'm struggling. And this fan art at the front, so it's so cute. And I think this might be like one of the only books I have that actually has fan art in it. And it's so cute. And there's a Q&A by the author. And I just love this book. I thought it was really nice. The next prompt is Evil Stepmother. So this is basically just where a character steps into a role that causes anger and resentment around those who love her or him. And I ended up choosing Samantha from Before I Fall by Lauren Oliver. So Samantha in this book was a pretty lovely child up until she met Lindsay, who ended up being one of the mean girls and who actually took Samantha under her wing. So because of that, she ended up becoming a mean girl as well. And it actually ended up impacting her life with her family and her relationships that she had with her mom, her dad, and her younger sister, as well as her childhood best friend, Kent. And obviously this book isn't really about her being a mean girl so much as her dying and then reliving the same day a bunch of different times. However, she does step into a role when she meets Lindsay that makes the people around her resent her. So I'm choosing Samantha. The final prompt is Happily Ever After, and this is basically just where a character or characters have had a very rough road but eventually find happiness at the end. And I am choosing The Problem with Forever by, again, Jennifer L. Armentrout. This book follows Mallory Dodge, who has PTSD after living in the foster care system. She ends up getting adopted by two incredible people, and 4 years after she's adopted, she wants to start high school for the first time. However, there is a slight problem because she does suffer from severe anxiety in the form of speaking, so she doesn't like talking to anybody, and this stems from living in the foster care system. When she starts high school, she's terrified, and she doesn't know how the heck she's going to make any friends. However, she ends up finding somebody that she had interacted with in the foster care system, and this entire story follows their journey to becoming friends again and to figuring out how they need each other as supports in their lives because they did grow up together. And there are some tragic events in this story which does strengthen the connection between them. So I think at the end of this, they do find happiness and they do find a peace within themselves. So I am going to pick these characters. So that was all the different prompts from the fairy tale in real life tag. Sorry again that some of them were not contemporary novels. Again, I don't feel like following the rules, so I picked ones that I just genuinely could not think of a contemporary for. And with that being said, thank you so much again for tuning into this video, and I will see you soon. Bye, readers!